Sixth item will be 2016-36 Stephen Friend, 26 Maple Street. And the seventh item will be 2016-35 Steve and Suzanne Soleimani, 4 Bracebridge Lane. So with that, we'll begin with 2016-16 Devinder Makan. Is there somebody?
I'll
Yeah, Marion, you want to start off?
Let me just cue this one up. This is, what we're here for tonight is preliminary subdivision approval. The reason I cue this is really on behalf of the village, which also sought this subdivision as part of an agreement with the village, whereby it involves a parcel at the very end of Peterbilt Road. It's a 5.46 acre parcel, and once it's subdivided, assuming it's subdivided, this portion, including the cul-de-sac that's going to be created here, will be conveyed to the village. It's about 3.22 acres. It'll be conveyed to the village to be used as open space. There's a deed there will be a deed restriction. It has to be maintained as green space, except for this cul-de-sac where some parking might be permitted if they wanted to have access, because this connects with the village's woods, I guess. Okay. And then the other lot would be retained by the developer, Mr. Macon, or whatever company he owns, to develop one single-family house. All right. Mr. Macon hired from Kellard Sessions, Michelle McCauley is here from Kellard Sessions, to make sure that this subdivision worked, mainly to make sure that the parcel that would remain with the developer is a buildable parcel. Again, only one house would be allowed, but there were some issues because of there's no sewers out there right now. And that's Kellard Sessions has made that, did that study. I've been working on it for about a year now, and working with our engineer. Our engineer is satisfied that all the calculations are correct. They've also been in touch with the county preliminarily, because the county requires the county approval for the septic. So tonight has nothing to do, other than finding that the other lot is developable, has nothing to do with the development of that lot. That'll have to come back to this board for site plan approval once they want to build a house there. They have to do sketch out a house, or even go in detail about a house to show that it can be done and that a septic can be installed, that there's a place where the septic fields can go in the house. So anyway, so it's here tonight for preliminary subdivision approval. From there it would go to the county Department of Health to okay it, then it would come back for final plan approval. But Michelle is here from Kellard to, I guess, explain any of the engineering stuff. And
I have a question on what you said. Is this on?
Yes.
You said our approval is indicates that it's a developable lot.
Yeah, you cannot grant subdivision approval unless the lots you're creating, if they're going to be built upon, are buildable. Yes.
Suppose when the health department gets it, it rejects the septic plan.
Well,
and we've already approved it as approvable.
No, it's only preliminarily approvable. If the county doesn't sign on to it, it doesn't get final plat approval. That's why it goes from you to County Department of Health.
So that's why I was
back to
questioning,
you.
if we're saying it's approvable, and then the county says no, what status is our approvable?
Nothing. It's preliminary. It never matures into final subdivision approval.
Okay.
We have submitted to the health department. They've been out there to witness.
You need to talk into the microphone.
Sorry. We have submitted to the health department. We have witnessed deeps and percolation tests with the health department. We received comments from them, very minor. They had 2 comments on the actual septic itself, just with some grading, which the plans have been revised to reflect that. We're waiting on a couple of things. We need seeker determination to resubmit to them for their approval. But I don't see it being a problem for the septic to be approved.
I was looking for the reserve area and I didn't see it.
It's all in this.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
total of 800 linear feet for a 4-bedroom septic, 400 for primary, 400 for expansion. It's all in that one area.
So you're going to have to clear that area that's for the reserve septic?
You do not have to clear for the reserve, just for the primary.
Okay.
Any other questions from any of the board members?
Or does have you taken a look and feel that it's developable?
For preliminary
Or we-
subdivision, we're okay with it. We still have some site plan comments though. That's
Right.
why we sent 2 separate memos. One was really for the subdivision and then the other's for site plan.
Right, right. I just want to make sure before, we say, go forward, that there really
Yeah.
is something.
Yeah, we've been looking at this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I thought so, but,
Right, they can meet all the setback requirements too with the way the lots are
Yeah.
subdivided.
Besides the clearing, what are some other adverse impacts that we should expect?
Aside from the clearing, because there is a lot of grading, they're cutting to bring the road.
runoff.
Runoff they're treating with stormwater. They're mitigating all their impacts as far as erosion controls go and stormwater.
Are they building in rock bed? Or is it rock?
There is rock, there's a lot of rock outcroppings up there, sure.
We're trying to kind of weave through it and around it so that we limit the impacts to the rock.
Where there's no rock, that's where their septic is and there's stormwater, so they're,
Right. But is there going to be blasting? Is it going to be jackhammering? I mean, how,
I don't know,
We don't have the plan for
How
it yet,
fast-
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think
Plus-
that becomes the site plan issue then, at that
Yeah.
point. But I think one thing though, picking up, I didn't want to jump ahead, but one comment you made in your site plan review though, Doug, was it appears a variance in height is required, and the applicant should verify that. I think what you need to do is make sure there is no variance required, because I don't think this board is going to be amenable to variances on a brand new subdivision.
I did talk to the applicant today, and he is going to have the architect take a look at it to make sure there is no variance.
Okay. Is there any other comments from any of the board members? No? And anyone from the public here to speak for or about this issue? No? And Marion, did you also prepare
Yeah,
the resolution, but also the environmental review also, the part 2 of the...
I mailed the part 2 of the environmental assessment form to everybody. But here's 2 copies.
I've seen, I reviewed it.
This is the last that you
Yeah.
Take a look at it.
Pretty much it says there aren't going to be any impacts on anything, because there's no development
Right.
here.
I
It's just
think
a
the only impact
subdivision.
is, right.
And then there is no, while there might be impacts from the single-family houses aren't subject to seats. So all you're considering is that. Okay, so did you want me to go through the resolution, Pat?
Sure, unless there are any questions. Does anyone have any questions on anything in the environmental review? The environmental assessment form?
Well, we've seen this.
No, I think it points out the only real issue is that it's going to be a single-family home, and that's what it says in Part 2. In Part 2 of the EAF, the only significant impact would be that would be the construction of a single-family home at some point, which is...
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is not
Right, which
subject
is-
to seating.
Right.
Yes,
But at this point, the subdivision is subject to secret.
right.
But the history of this is what? This is
I,
a property that this applicant owned and then now wants to build a house on part of it and gifting the other part to the village? Is that?
not exactly gifting, it's part of a settlement. I think I spoke with the board and advisory council session about this a few months ago. As part of a settlement, that,
Either I didn't listen, which is probably
yeah.
accurate, or I wasn't here, which I hope.
If you'd like, I can meet with you again next
No, if
time.
everyone else is comfortable with it, I'm just,
Is everybody else, I
Yeah,
am.
I'm fine.
Yes.
You okay? Yeah, I think we're all okay with it.
initially they wanted to.
It's not optimal.
Well, there were proposals to build 5 houses, but that never would have blown. I mean, there were ads in the newspaper that it was gonna be could be sold for 5 houses, but that was never gonna happen. So it is, if you go through the straight site capacity, the site capacity does allow, I think, 3 houses.
Yeah.
But, with the adopting the steep slopes and, those parts, it gets together. But only 1 house. And that's cast in stone once this subdivision is approved. There'll be a deed restriction on the property, and you'll see it's one of the conditions of the subdivision, the resolution that you passed tonight.
Deed restriction on which property?
The property can't be further subdivided. Oh, there's deed restrictions actually on both properties.
And the deed restrictions say what?
Well, they have a bunch of things, but,
Well, in terms of
but in
future
terms of
development.
development, well, it's mainly, actually, it's on the property that the village has that that's gotta remain green space.
Okay. And what about the property that the house is gonna be on? Not further developed, I think you said
Did it
not.
say it can't be further subdivided?
That's part of the planning board decision tonight, that it can be
Okay.
further subdivided. But let me just see if there's what's on that one. They mainly relate to, cleanup of the site. That's what most of the.
Okay. Yeah, I was concerned with the further development aspect, that's all.
No, it can't be. You're subdividing into 2 lots, that's it, you can't further subdivide, that's it.
Yeah.
This is it. It's actually, pretty, I would say benign, use of the property compared to some of the stuff that was threatened, that we.
Proposed
on the
But
site.
over the years, it was a pretty good resolution.
Are we putting in this anything about what you brought up about not going for variances, or are we just using that as a recommendation to the applicant?
Well, I think it's more than a
Recommendation, I don't think it would get past this board, I think, at this point.
Okay,
If
I just
there's-
thought
But
that
that
should
wouldn't
be
variances on a-
part of-
on a
that wouldn't
brand new
be part of the
subdivision.
subdivision
Understood.
resolution.
I know, just
Right.
clear.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to go for variance.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mary, why don't you
So
read the
whereas
resolution?
in July 2016, Una Equities Providers, care of Devinder Macon, applied for subdivision approval to subdivide a 5.46 acre parcel at the end of Peterbout Road into 2 lots, one comprising 2.24 acres to be developed as a single-family residence, the subject of a separate application, and one comprising 3.22 acres to be conveyed to the Village of Irvington, .28 acres to be right-of-way, and 2.94 acres to remain undeveloped. And whereas this subdivision is being sought in compliance with an agreement between Una Equities Providers Corp. And the Village of Irvington dated March 6th, and this agreement requires that the 2 lots created by the subdivision be subject to a declaration of covenants and restrictions, which is to be filed with the Westchester County Clerk. This note, I had Michelle add to the subdivision plan, so this plan is on there, so that anybody who would be looking at the subdivision will know about this agreement. It would be binding anyway, but it's just to put any future buyer on notice. Whereas the applicant also submitted an application for determination of site capacity, which showed sufficient capacity to permit a 2-lot subdivision, and the planning board held a public hearing on the subdivision on July 6th, October 5th, and then tonight. All of the issues raised by Han Engineering pertaining to the subdivision application in its memoranda dated July 1st and October 4th were addressed to Han's satisfaction. The subdivision plat has been reviewed preliminarily by the Westchester County Department of Health. On July 6th, 2016, this planning board declared its intent to be lead agency for review of the subdivision application under SECRA and circulated notice of that to all involved agencies, none of which objected, and therefore the planning board assumed lead agency status. The subdivision is an unlisted action under SECRA, and the planning board has reviewed the environmental assessment form. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board finds the proposed subdivision will not have any adverse impacts on the environment and therefore issues a negative declaration under SECRA, and be it further resolved that the planning board finds the proposed subdivision complies with the relevant lot requirements of the village's subdivision regulations, section 188-19, Be it further resolved that the planning board finds that the proposed subdivision would not require additional parkland and recreational facilities because only one residential lot will be developed and the remaining property will become part of the village's open space inventory. And be it further resolved that the planning board grants preliminary subdivision approval to the plat entitled subdivision map prepared for Macon Development, subject to the following conditions. 1, the plat must be properly endorsed by the Westchester County Health Department. 2, a note must be added to the plat stating that no further subdivision of the property will be allowed. 3, all application and consulting fees must be paid in full. 4, prior to approval of the final plat, the applicant must provide notice compliant with Village Code, Section 188-10E2. I think it would definitely be a problem for you to add a note that it can't be further subdivided.
No, that's no
Okay.
problem.
Any comments on the resolution?
No.
No? You can have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Okay,
It's
so
approved.
Pat, in addition to the resolution,
Just
you should,
sign this, the
only you
environmental
need to
assessment.
sign the
That's
next,
the, yes.
sign 2 of them, one for,
I only have
Here's
one.
I only
here's
have
the
one.
second one.
okay. Only Pat has to sign it. Save your ink for the other, that's it.
July. Sounds like July, you had the
I think you actually have
Vice Council too.
a signature to prepare.
You may not have been.
I was not here, so.
I'm sorry, what?
Sounds like July was when you had the advice of council, which,
No, at the October meeting.
No, it was quite a while ago.
Oh, was it?
Sounds like.
no, that means I wasn't here.
Then that explains it, okay, I'll talk to
You
you.
know by me, okay?
You probably right. I'll talk to you.
Just good for her.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible when you, I forgot. Okay.
Not the first time.
Thank
And then
you.
wait, no, you need the resolution of subdivision. So you always do 2 of them, so.
Thank you very much.
What's
Well,
yours?
The next item is 2016-34, Cruz Perez, 16 Station Road.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Thomas Lopinski.
You need to speak up.
Speak louder.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Thomas Lopinski. I'm a contractor and design consultant for Bruce Perez. And our client is looking to put a new patio door in the rear of the house. So we're looking for adding a exit platform and steps. That obviously it's going to change our site plan, and so we did our zoning analysis, and it's going to affect our coverage. We're going a little bit above the limit, so we're proposing to remove existing walkway, concrete walkway that it's on the east side of the house, just to stay below the limit described in the zoning code. So that's pretty much it.
The walkway that's on the east side of the house, that walkway leads out to Station Road or to South Buckout Street?
Station Road.
To Station Road. So, but there still is a sidewalk, there still is a walkway to the front door?
To the,
Okay.
to the main entry.
Okay. I think, are there any, the flat, the backyard is relatively flat.
Totally, completely flat.
Are there any trees near or within the area that you're going to be doing any of the work?
There's a one tree here, and there's another one is here. They're sort of out of the drip line of the. I mean, the work is pretty much out of the drip lines of the trees, so it's close, but
Far enough away. But that was the only comment I had. Any other questions, comments from any of the board members? No? Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak to this matter? No, I think if the board is okay with this, it's such a minor matter, and you don't need a variance at this point, correct? Doesn't need a variance on this. So I think if you would just respond to some of the comments in the letter from Doug Hahn.
No, there are no comments.
Just two comments.
There's two comments, I think. Just the tree, just noting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just noting if there are any trees in the area, and showing any tree protection. I think those are the two main. Is there any need for any silt fence? Pardon me?
We did get it.
we did.
What was that, Doug?
I just asked if you got my email.
Oh, okay.
There's a revised memo. I don't know if you got it this afternoon.
Right. Oh, this afternoon? I got the one from this morning. All right.
There's also
There were
showing
fewer comments than what's on this one?
That's correct.
the ECB
Yeah,
wrote a couple things, but I think we addressed them.
Yeah, we're addressed.
yeah.
So then, I think it's, again, it's such a minor matter, if the board is okay with it, I think I'd like to have a vote to approve this evening. Yes? Okay.
Any public?
Pardon me? That's how you open it up to the public. I don't think there's anyone here to comment on it. No? So Mary Ann, do you
Yeah, I
have a
prepared a
resolution?
resolution just in case. In December 2016, Bruce Perez applied for site development plan approval to construct an exit platform and steps at his house at 16 Station Road. Hahn reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated today found the plans to be acceptable except for two minor items. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on December 7th. It's a type 2 action under SECRA, therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Alterations to Everdeen Perez Residence, drawing 8-1, prepared by DS2 Studio, subject to complying with the two items listed in Hahn's memorandum dated December 7th.
I'm sorry, you finished, Mary Ann? A little sidebar there. But,
So moved.
no, so, any comments on the resolution? No. You have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much.
Don't go away. Get one of the radio. Get one of the,
Do you want these easier? Okay.
get one of the signed documents.
I think we had Sarah by the young lady,
By the way, that was very detailed. Very good. I thought your plans were very detailed.
You needed a little work on the site plan.
It was a lot more detailed than some of the other ones I looked at for a lot bigger projects.
Tonight.
The next item is 2016-33, Joseph Clark, 60 East Sunnyside Lane.
You know, talking to the microphone for the transcriber.
This is a application for a porch that is existing. We just want to, it's screened in now, as you can see, as a color picture, you can see a little better. And we would just want to put glass in the porch to enclose it so that we get a 3-season room out of it instead of just the 2-season room. And just a little more protection. In the past, we've put plastic up in the winter to try and protect it, which is an eyesore to the neighbors. So we just want to do glass in it. These are just, this isn't exactly the way it's going to look, but this is something the manufacturers gave us. Basically, it's going to be sliding glass on the top with a glass panel on the bottom. So basically, it'll look just the same as this. This will be glass. These will be two windows that'll slide. That's basically it. We're here because we exceed the square footage, which we have to go to the zoning board, and we're aware of that. But there's basically no impact at all other than the glass.
Okay.
You put new steps into it.
We had these steps, no, we repaired these, these were brought out. So, this house, we bought, my in-laws lived there. It was a foreclosure, it was in really bad shape, and those of you who drive up Sunnyside Lane can see how we're trying to improve this house. So we hope, we'll improve it a little more in the neighborhood.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the board members? No? Any comments from anyone in the public? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say I'd love to see it get approved, because I'm the guy that's going to enjoy it.
I think you're a little biased now. So I think that if there are no comments, I think this, again, this is an item that it's so inconsequential that the planning board can approve this subject to going to the zoning board for a variance. Right, Mary, you have a
Yeah, I prepared a resolution to that effect. In December 2016, Joseph Clark applied for site plan approval to convert an existing, what? Screen porch on his house at 60 Sunnyside Lane to an enclosed porch. And enclosing the porch will increase the floor area ratio, which already exceeds the maximum permitted and will therefore require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Con Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated December 6th found no engineering issues. The Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on December 7th. The actions at Type 2 under SECR. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawing entitled Proposed Stair Roof at 60 Sunnyside Lane, one sheet, prepared by Stephen Costa, subject to receiving a variance for FAR from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's all approved.
Thank you.
Just a question for you. Make sure you get some good heat out of this place. And I sort of know someone that might be able to do it for you. I'll give you good names.
That's what's left. Left two pencils.
Can we really?
Next item is 2016-29, Eileen Fisher, 116, 118 Main Street.
Second time I've come before this group without some foam core, I apologize. Peter Reynolds, North River Architecture and Planning, representing Eileen Fisher, 116 Main Street. Main Street is here on the drawing. We came to you last time with essentially a concept plan, and we coming back this month hoping we're closer to a complete application. Two kinds of issues, as you may know, landscaping and hardscape, a few minor hardscape changes. And then drainage, septic and drainage issues. I know Ed's been at the site recently, and I realize there's been conversations between Ed and Han and our engineers, so we're going to talk more about that tonight. And that there's a lot of back and forth. I'll try not to complicate it by getting myself too far into the middle of those issues. But I do understand from our team that Joe Clark and his son are also, should, in the benefit of the town, be part of the same discussion. No? So we can resolve it to everybody's benefit. There's a septic system that cuts through this property and up the driveway. Storm drainage, not septic?
Oh, sanitary.
It's sanitary.
Oh, it's sanitary sewer in the street, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Joe. So, as far as we can push that along tonight would be great. We did receive just today comments from Han, and so we're reacting as quickly as we can. I believe a lot of them were resolved in discussion earlier today, but we understand we're not complete yet. If before the end of the discussion there's any possibility, I'll ask you about whether and how we might move on to what's next on our plate, which is we'd like to get porches and some other architectural issues through to the ARB, so a little bit enlightenment on process would be great. And related to that, I realize there's a variance required for the Croton Aqueduct relative to hardscape. It's quite small in scope, so if that's truly required, I'd love to just hear about that.
Any comments from any of the board members?
Last time there was an issue with the new plantings in the front. You had a question on it?
Well, yeah, the new plantings are, the old plantings are gone.
What's taking out and what's going in?
Right, and I think you started to show the plantings on the plan. Did you have a chance, did you receive the comments from Munz Associates, our landscape architect?
Just did, yes.
Okay, because I think there are 4 items on there that I think that need to be addressed. The first one is, I think I guess there is a Belgian block curve that is going in along the driveway on the west side of the property.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and I believe that Belgian block driveway, well, it's on the other side too, it's on the west side, close to the west
On the west side of the driveway, huh? The west
There are a
side
number
of the
of
property.
trees, right, there are a number of trees running along that property line there, and they're substantial trees. I
Yes.
think what you need to do is, and what our recommendation from Lucille Munz is that you get an arborist on board to take a look at those trees and the work that's to be done within the drip line of those trees, and to see how any impact of those trees can be mitigated. Because I don't think those are trees that we want to lose. I mean, you
Absolutely not.
You have some screening there between the parking lot and the house. So I think that's number 1. I think 2, the plantings along the east side of the property. I think Munz's comments that there were a number of trees that were being proposed that could grow to 60, 70 feet tall over time, and we probably won't be here when they reach that height, but still, those are substantial trees, and maybe you ought to look at something that might be a little, that won't grow as tall, but will still give you screening from the neighbor, and the neighbor will have screening from your property.
Okay.
And the tree protection details, I think you need to be consistent. Your plan shows a certain type of tree protection, which is armoring around the trunks of the trees, yet I guess it's Hudson Engineering shows a fence around the drip line of the tree. So you really need to be consistent on the plans.
Construction phase protection, you mean long-term construction phase protection?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And then the last, I think, was the concrete sidewalk. There's a concrete sidewalk at the mouth of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Is it concrete now, Ed, or is it?
It's
concrete.
I think more it's recessed, and I think it's concrete now. Might be
Concrete.
blacktop.
I think it's concrete.
There was a new blacktop driveway put in recently, so that's kind of hard to remember. But he's talking about the apron, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might want to coordinate with the plans that the village has for work that we're going to be doing.
As
on
to
both sides.
elevation?
Yeah.
Elevation and materials to be used in front of the driveway there.
Yep.
Those are the basic comments from Munz, and I concur with all of those. And I don't know if any of the board members have any other comments?
Sounds good. I'm sure there'll be no problem about those.
Okay. And so I think, as you said, you need to go to a variance for the aqueduct buffer. And I think the other note too is number 12, the engineering plans and the architectural plans should be revised to eliminate conflicting detail. Well, I guess that's what I was talking about with regard to the tree protection. There might be other items on there too, Doug? A few other items that need to be.
Did you review, were they in the scope of your discussion with Hudson today, or are those new items?
No, drainage only, but.
Okay.
And are these plans at the same scale now? Hudson's and the architect's plans?
I believe they were at the same scale. They were in different orientations, which was a little confusing when you go back and forth and one's upside down. One faces north, the other one faces south. That was something we mentioned in there.
Okay, sorry about that. Yep.
As long as they should at least be at the same scale.
Of course.
So, if there are no other comments, I think you can go on to the ZBA.
The ZBA.
Well, they're not meeting in December.
There's no December meeting, so.
We saw that.
So I guess you
Somebody has.
yes, sir.
Just quickly.
Yeah,
you
you
have
need
to
to
come up.
introduce yourself.
Take the microphone here.
That's on.
Alan Grant, neighbour on the southern side of the property in question. I missed the earlier meeting. Perhaps it would be helpful to me just to have some clarification on what's proposed on the southern boundary where there have been some dead trees removed. And it would just be helpful to know what's intended for that southern boundary face.
Sure. I believe it's minimal. At the south end, I think that the trees that were removed were essentially maintenance-oriented, hazard trees. There were certainly nothing removed with the intention of decreasing the screening for its own sake. I don't think that there's substantial replanting proposed on the south side. That's my understanding.
That's not what I understood from the discussions that...
You need to use the microphone because this is a transcript.
Sure. That's not what I understood from the discussions that originally took place that my wife had with one of your team.
A landscape designer, yeah, the landscape architect.
Right now, boundary is very open. Several trees were removed, and again, it would just be helpful to know what's envisaged longer term, if not short term, for that boundary.
I had a discussion with the landscape architects after you and your wife spoke, I believe. I'm quite sure it was afterwards. And as she and I walked the property, and then she prepared a plan, her proposal to me was that on inspection, that the removal of the essentially maintenance-oriented removal of the large-scale trees was what they recommended, the arborist and the landscape, and that's what was proposed and performed, and that anything, certainly not removal of anything that was additional, that was visually screening or low scale, but that on inspection she thought it was fairly substantial. Not saying we're not open to it, but nothing was proposed about it.
My question goes less to what was removed and more to what is going to get back in its place. And that was a topic of discussion between one of your team and
to replace,
my household.
To patch what was removed.
Yeah, and frankly, we had offered to share the cost, but we think that the vegetation should be restored,
Sure.
and the boundary should be
Sure.
considered.
In terms of the trees removed, what size were they?
There was
were
this gentleman will know better than I, but by recall, along this boundary line, and perhaps one in here, you can correct me, I'm sorry, but from a walk through this summer, I recall, there was either standing dead or heavily damaged over...
You still need a permit from the village.
I believe it was permitted, it was all permitted in advance.
In the permit process, did they say anything about replanting?
My landscape architect and her arborist processed that with the town. I'm not clear myself. But just to cut, perhaps this will be helpful. I completely agree with you. There's no interest in not making equal what was there before, and if not increasing it. If there's an oversight, we apologize, and we'll absolutely do that. Just to be clear, also, I think we're falling shy of committing to increasing or substantially increasing the planting as a screening measure beyond what was there. But we're open to that discussion absolutely as well. We'd like to be happy with what the long term.
No, there's no question. What was there? What was taken down was either dead or was seriously affected by Sandy Irene, so it had to come down. But I think it was always our expectation, consistent with the discussions that took place, that there would be sensible replanting.
Okay.
And costs to be shared.
Costs aren't even the issue. We apologize if that wasn't done. We certainly would want to do that.
Well, let me suggest this then. I think you need to come back with a landscape plan that shows some plantings on that same property line. I think what you ought to do is speak to Mr. Hyatt, is it?
Yes.
Is maybe have your landscape architect meet with Mr. and Mrs. Hyatt and make sure that it's compatible with what they're looking for,
Sure.
and then come back with that plan.
Absolutely.
Next meeting.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just the one other concern that we had is the sewer. There is a right-of-way through this property from my son's house, which sits here. The sewer goes through, goes down here. I believe the Hyatt sewer picks up and the two marry. So I'm not really sure if it's a town sewer at that point or nobody really knows it. We believe, we're still trying to figure that out, and Ed and I actually talked whether or not it goes out this way or that way. I'm actually going to put a camera and see if we can trace it. I was hoping to do it today, and I just didn't have time. So we just want to make sure that if, in fact, it is in the driveway, if it's the town sewer, that it's addressed, or if it's our sewer, we address it before you guys do all this work, and then we have to dig it up. It is an old line or whatever, but I would like to see that addressed, and I'm sure we'll work together. We've been working together for a while, so it's not an issue, but I just wanted to be on the record that that it is a concern of ours. And it's not clear actually whose sewer it is, because it is so old. There's many sewers in East Town. It's, they go through areas that no one even knew was there. And, we actually discovered it during the purchase of the house, and the people before them actually gave us a legal easement, even though it's been there for 100 years. But there is a legal easement for our section of it going in, but where it marries and goes out, it's kind of vague.
So there isn't an easement through the entire
Well,
Fisher property?
Well, there is technically, but no, I don't think anybody's really documented exactly where it is. It's just that it's a known sewer that travels through this property.
So have you done a title search or anything on this?
It may have been done back there, but no one ever
Wouldn't get recorded.
got recorded an exact location of it, or whatever. But it is on there. that
So
the sewer travels
even if there is an easement, it may not be in the right place.
It may not be in the right place.
Yeah, we certainly don't want.
I think that's basically it. Yes.
Yeah, we certainly don't want construction on top of the sewer.
Well,
Right on top of the
if we
sewer.
don't have an issue, it's under the driveway now, if we think, but it's just that if they're gonna spend all this money to fix the driveway, we don't wanna have to dig it up a year from now because the sewer failed. So,
And since they're married, I'm sure you'll inspect all of it, so that.
we're aware of it, and we're gonna put a camera in there and see what it is, but it just, we're not sure if, because there's more than one person on it, if it's the town's or if it's ours.
Joe, if you're going to continue to speak, use the microphone.
I'm sorry. But we're not sure if it's, because it's more than one person on it, if it becomes a town sewer at that point, because it's not just one household on it. There is one, ours is up.
Mike,
How do you think yours runs?
Ours goes down here, and then the two, we believe, marry here, and then where they go from there.
Oh, you're
We
not sure
think
where-
they go up the driveway, we're not 100% sure.
All right, well, you're going to say, put the camera down, so
Yeah,
maybe you
we'll
can find
see
out.
if we, yes, exactly. And we should be able to work together on it.
I've seen people put Roto-Rooter and listen for the noise, for the banging sound.
We got much more sophisticated stuff than that now.
Sure was a nice camera.
So I think we can maybe hopefully have a resolution to these two issues then by
Yeah.
the next planning board meeting. Then you'd be in a position to go to the ZBA, which is not going to meet until January anyway, which will be after our meeting in January.
Okay, I wonder, Ed, is there anything that this board should hear about the town's interest? Steve, I talked to Steve Kosich today. I'm not sure he got it right, but is the town have an interest in this other than just having it be resolved?
The town doesn't take things over lightly.
Is there anything improvement to the town benefit other than these internal
You can see
issues?
the Jim English fee, but if it's 4 inches, it's a problem, there's 3 on it.
Mhm.
If there's no manholes every 200 feet, there's a problem with it.
Mhm.
So taking it over would involve drawings from your engineer
Mhm.
with manholes and larger pipe.
It'd certainly be a manhole where they marry together.
Yeah, and I think it's just 200 feet to the street.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Anyone in the audience? No? I think that's it for this evening then. See you next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job. Why don't you show Jim English?
Yeah, how much time do you have?
Yeah, show him. please.
Next item is 2016-37, Stephen Silp and Jesse Ewing, 3 Ardsley Terrace. Oh, Hillary Schnell has recused herself on this matter.
This one.
evening. My name is Salah Foda with Christoph Ridner Architect, and we are here to represent Mr. Thorpe and Mrs. Owen for a garage extension, which is 252 square feet extension. The existing garage is basically in the basement to accommodate one small car, and basically it's so hard to accommodate even a small car with no ample room to go around the car. So the proposed extension is to accommodate 2 cars back to back and provide for a terrace on top to utilize the view of the Hudson River. The proposed extension is also enhances the curb appeal on King Road as well, and it fits within the King Road area, which basically the neighboring houses are extended beyond the rear setbacks. So we are here to ask for 2 variances. One is the coverage, lot coverage. The other one is the rear setback variance. And in general, we are within the surrounding homes as far as the rear setbacks, which extend over the required setbacks on the King Road. And the proposal would actually enhance that King Road curb appeal, would give it a more kind of unified street walls on the King Road. The coverage existing coverage is over the required by 52%, but this is due to the size of the lot. The size of the lot is basically half what is required. It's a 10,081 square feet, and required for the zoning district F20 is the 2,000. This is why the existing is over what is allowed, of course, the size of the lot. And yet it's within the existing neighboring lots as far as the small lots concerned, comparing to the required for the F20. And the proposed garage extension is basically not extending beyond the existing walls, the western walls of the neighboring homes. It's basically from, if you look at it from the West Clinton going east, you realize the 3 Huxley houses basically behind number 1 Huxley Terrace house. So with the proposed extension would be still within that extended line of the neighboring homes. So it's not really major addition as far as the existing conditions on King Road. Today we got the home engineering comments, and we will respond to those comments for this meeting.
Maybe if you would, you have 6 photos there, maybe you could explain each of those photos, what we're looking at on each of them.
Okay, this is the existing house with the existing basement garage, which is very tight in a way, hardly to get a decent sized garage. And the extension will be coming out this way. Looking north to number 1 Huxley house, which is basically here, and it's covering the existing 3 Huxley house. And if we add to the extension, still the garage of 1 terrace is still basically sheltering or hiding our proposed extension.
Well, what's between the 1 Ardsley Terrace and the 3 Ardsley Terrace? What kind of landscaping buffering is there between the 2 houses?
Yeah, there is the shrubs right there, which is basically hide the existing garage. You will not see it because it's basically in the side of it. So there is a shrubbing, and the other one is the wood fence. So we have wood fence on our side, and the next neighbor at 1 Huxley Terrace has the about 7 to 8 foot high shrubs along.
From that middle photo, the one you were just describing, where you were looking at One Ardsley Terrace, about how far out would you say, just estimating, would the garage be coming out behind those shrub or the hedge that we see there? If you can show on the photograph, on the middle photograph, the upper photograph. Yeah.
It's basically, our extension would be at the middle, would come out at the middle of that existing one terrace garage there, would be in here. And it's basically half of it hidden behind that existing part of the house of 3 Ardsley, and the other half is coming out about 8 foot beyond that existing wall, and is still hidden behind the shrubs.
And it's only one level, the garage. that
Yes,
you're
it's
putting
only one level,
With a deck on top.
which is the basement level. If you were on the terrace, on the Ardsley Terrace, you would not really see the garage because it's a basement level.
That second photo with the fence, that's 3 Ardsley Terrace? That's the house at question right now?
Yes, this one.
Okay. Now, how far down the fence is that garage going to come?
Basically, it's about 33 feet and 11 inches, almost 34 feet. That's away from the fence. But when it comes out, it's coming out 8 foot 8 inches beyond the existing house.
No, I understand that, but from the picture of 3 Ardsley Terrace, the fence is on the Ardsley Terrace side, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how far down that fence line will the garage be?
Down this way?
Yes.
The side would be,
Right down.
Towards, parallel to the fence.
parallel to the fence, would be basically coming 8 foot from that wall. It's almost to the middle of that fence there.
You said, the next house, the gray house, you said it was about, not going to extend beyond the halfway, in the second picture, halfway in that, what's already there.
Yes, would be basically not going beyond halfway of that existing garage for the one terrace.
So it looks like it's between the second and third post walking up this one.
Yes.
You got it?
Got it.
So you're saying basically that your new garage, when it's facing the street, is going to be set back further than 1 Ardsley Terrace?
Yes.
By how much?
By 2 feet.
Oh, okay, so visually it's going to be more or less the same. What's on the other side?
The other side, there
Further
is,
south.
Because that's the side where the garage really is.
the other side, basically they have a garage with potentially they can enclose the porch.
That's the matter that was before us in the last several
Yes.
months, George, where
Yes.
they were putting a deck.
That's
and
the
a
deck?
patio. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great, that's great.
And further down, number 8,
Tit for tat.
there is the same condition, which is actually extending beyond our proposed line, which is a garage and a deck on top as well. So we actually are
Smaller deck.
going to be set behind those 2 lines.
You mentioned 2 variances, but is it 2 or 3 variances that are
The
needed?
third for the zoning board, which is the square footage.
Right, you have a rear yard setback.
FAR and
Coverage
rear yard
for-
setback, there's
Right.
3.
So FAR coverage and the rear yard setback. So you do need 3 variances.
Yes.
Okay.
1 for the zoning board and 2 for this board.
No, they're all from the zoning
They're all
board.
from zoning board.
Okay.
They don't give any.
We don't give out variances, that's the zoning board's purview.
I was speaking as far as site planning concern.
Any other comments from any of the board members?
Yes. On the plan, on the macadam driveway, you indicated you're going to put crushed stone or concrete for the construction phase.
Yes, there is.
What are you going to do with the macadam that would be underneath it? You ripping it out and or you putting it on top? I wasn't clear.
We're going to be redoing the existing canon as well. because it can be sloping it up about 3 inches up to the new level of the...
So you're taking the macadam out, putting in the construction material for the
Yes,
purpose.
for that part, it's 10 feet.
So there won't be anything impervious underneath the crushed stone?
No.
This is a test. Do you know how it got its name, macadam?
I did not...
It was invented by John Macadam, so.
George, did you have?
No, I'm good. I want to know what McCann was.
Any comments from anyone in the audience? No, then, I think you can go on to the ZBA at this point. You'd have to come back and address, or the
ZBA is up December ZBA.
Right, okay. So you might as well come back, address these issues in Doug's memo, and then
Yes, we just...
we'll be in a position to send you on to the ZBA in January.
Sure, thank you.
Just call me with any, if you have questions you want to go.
Of course.
Try to get it resolved tomorrow.
Yes, I will. We just got it today and...
Okay, thank you.
Like this.
The next matter is 2016-36 Stephen Friend, 26 Maple Street, and I'm going to recuse myself on this item, and Sheila will chair.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Villani.
I'm laughing at you.
That's okay. My name is Jonathan Villani. I'm with the Nunziata Villani Design Consultants. My client is the Friend Residence on 26 Maple Street. They're proposing, they just purchased the home. Apparently on the previously recorded property card, there was a deck that was represented that is not what was built that they purchased. So the deck was 12. These dimensions are incorrect, but it was roughly 12 going back towards the backyard. It was 12 by 20 wide or 19.10 wide. And now, in actuality, when they purchased it, the as-built deck is about roughly 20 by a little less than 20 by 20. It's 19.8 going towards the backyard and 19.1 wide. It's an as-built deck. I don't know why it wasn't permitted or it was built, how they got around a C of O without the larger deck. But nevertheless, my client purchased the property. In discussions with Ed, we're proposing to put a staircase that runs from the deck down within all of our setbacks. But in discussions, realized that this deck wasn't the recorded deck on record. So we're trying to legalize this deck. So site planning, I would imagine we'll have to get a variance for a rear yard setback. I received comments from Doug that I just received that I have to address. Doesn't seem anything too complicated, just things I have to put on the drawing. And just would love to be able to go to zoning and move on.
You also need a variance for coverage, not just the rear yard setback, also for coverage.
Well, I think that you have several things that need to be addressed, and I think you need to come back here.
The ZBA canceled their
They have no meeting in December.
So it's
You
fine.
have to come back here anyway.
It won't affect your schedule.
Well, I understand we addressed them. We're just, it was the impression that the client bought the home without knowing that these were issues.
No, I understand,
So,
that happens a lot.
yeah, so the issues will have to be discussed, and we'll address them and address the comments as well.
Okay, and we need the breakdown of, you know about the breakdown of the coverage for the
Yes.
property.
No problem.
Also, this is happening a lot. You are not the applicant.
Okay.
You're representing the applicant at this meeting, so. But everything on this sheet is, you are the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a minor correction, but it's,
Even though the client is not addressing any, they're filling out everything.
fortunately, the client signed,
Sure, no problem.
no problem.
Okay.
All right, so, See you next month.
No problem. It's just amend the drawings, right? Amend the drawings and...
And the drawings are then by the deadline,
Which is
And you have,
the new one?
21st.
Okay.
and you have the engineer's comments.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You can call us anything.
This helped,
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think so.
Next item is, 2016-35, Steve and Suzanne Soleimani for Bracebridge Lane.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Lino Sharetta on behalf of the Solomani's. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Solomani's. They're looking to basically build a single-family home on 4 Bracebridge, which is currently a vacant lot. We did receive a memo from Mr. Hahn. I know Mr. Greg Johnson, our architect, will go through them. Also, we have this evening is the homeowner, Mr. Steve Soleimani, who's in the back. We understand that we have some variances, some things we need to address, and which we will. Tonight, we really just we're here it's our first meeting, kind of want to get a sense from you all, what you think of the site plan. And again, knowing that we have to address some concerns, again, we just want to be here tonight just to hear you all out. And with that, I give you Mr. Greg Sharp. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Greg Sharp.
It's a green light.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good.
Take the other one's working, take the other one.
They're gonna shut it off.
Hello. Hi, my name is Greg Sharp. I'm an architect. I represent the Solomani's, who are hoping to build a single-family home for themselves and their 2 young children. This site sits on Broadway and is currently protected by a line of trees that's going to remain, as well as some large trees that are existing within the Broadway buffer area. So nothing of significant vegetation or screening is going to be changing from the Broadway view. We plan on using the existing stone piers as our entrance that was previously set up and is part of the original plot plan and subdivision plan. In doing that, the access to the property is right through here off of Broadway. We plan on entering the site and having a driveway that's going to pitch downward and to create a turnout area and keep the automobile traffic to the front area of the property. We plan on having an impervious, area to allow for the drainage to pass through. And we would like to have the garage, so the access and entrance to the garage does not face Broadway, so that it is hiding the view of the entrance. We're also hoping to push the main entrance to the house further back as far as possible to create as far back on the property that we can in order to provide additional separation. We're planning on trying to utilize the slope of the site and work with the existing topography. We're building within setback lanes. We do penetrate the Broadway buffer just by a couple of feet, but we are maintaining, we are hoping to have it just right behind an existing very large black walnut tree that's existing. And so we plan on keeping all that vegetation in the front of the building. We're proposing to provide new screening along the perimeters on both sides. We're planning or hoping to have new stone walls that would, natural stone walls that would retain the existing elevation to create this area. We're proposing to have a drainage cistern in the front area and an additional Coltech drainage area in the rear of the property. We plan on maintaining the existing screening along the rear of the property as well. The house is, it's a new house, so it's on an existing empty lot.
Before you leave that page, that parking area, I mean, where's the buffer go to?
The buffer is right here.
And those two cars, I assume those are two cars, they're in
Yes.
the buffer zone,
Yeah.
it's okay?
No.
Oh, okay. Long.
So, okay. So this is the driveway area. Okay, so, all right. So, this is the basement of the house. So, we're hoping to have the basement open to the rear yard due to the slope of the property. The main floor of the house, which has a center hall type feature. The garage is off to the side and would have access this way. There'd be a great room element, and we're hoping to have a deck area off of the rear. And we're proposing 3 bedrooms upstairs, and utilizing the space over the garage, the allowable space over the garage. Shows a section through the house. And the elevations of the proposal, which shows from the existing stone wall along the street, and then our hopeful stone wall that would create our parking area, as well as hold back the adjacent land in order to create this area, and then just showing how it is set within the slope of the terrain. We were hoping to create a simple, modern barn aesthetic, and I would say a modern house with maybe a little bit more of a softer and traditional tone than a flat roofed modern house. Yeah. This just shows some of the materials, some of the natural materials that we would use, which is wood screening, natural stone walls, weathered zinc roofing and siding, steel windows, stucco, and cobblestones in certain areas around the entrance area. But I would imagine that this meeting is more focused on the site plan related documents. The house is currently under the allowable FAR. It is over in lot coverage, and it is within the allowable setbacks on the 3 sides, but it does penetrate the driveway buffer by the garage by just a couple of feet. So at this point, are there any questions? Like Lino said, we'd like to hear your comments and know how we could hopefully move through this process.
And we know the ZBA doesn't meet next month.
This is the microphone, sir.
Can I ask you a
This
question?
is on purpose.
I know.
I thought when the Milanos had come for, didn't they present a house? And there was there was an access road on the right side of their house that was a shared driveway, and the access to the other piece of property came right back? No? Okay, I'm dreaming.
There's a driveway behind, there's a house that has a long driveway behind it. but it's not part of their property.
The house is called...
Bracebridge, but they don't have access
Yeah,
to it.
it is Bracebridge, but we had, at one point, we
Now-
were wondering about the mailing address, but we're not quite sure what to do about that yet. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the break in the stone wall that's currently there, are you
That's right.
planning to enlarge it?
No, it's existing. The only thing that we're doing is we're just taking down the trees that are there in order to gain access to it. So there's a couple of small, part of the screening that just goes right over it currently. So we would just remove those. But we're planning on keeping everything significant in the front, which is this very large black walnut tree. And so we're not removing any significant vegetation from the front of the property.
But that tree is very close to your construction.
Yes, but not by only by the garage section, so it won't have we would go around it in that particular instance. We would save the tree, is what I'm trying to say.
So about the garage section,
Yeah.
so you're going to find with this board that we're very protective of the Broadway buffer,
Uh-huh.
and we're very protective of it, and we do not like building in the Broadway buffer.
Yeah.
So
We don't like the driveway in the buffer either.
Okay.
Parking.
Yeah.
Parking. So
Parking spaces,
We're
yeah.
going to challenge you to find
Okay.
A solution.
a solution.
All right. Okay. Well, like I said, that we're definitely going to look at everything we have to do in order to move the process along. I was trying to maintain everything significant within the Broadway buffer, which is the tree and the screening and everything, and our house and our driving area is actually set 6 feet below the line of the curb. So the fact is, visually, I don't think it would have an impact, since any car that would be parked there would be below the level of the street. So you wouldn't really have a visual, it wouldn't affect you visually is what I'm saying, but obviously it's still within the buffer, but just visually it wouldn't be a visible element.
Let me ask you this, you're looking for a coverage variance, looks like a height variance too, and also the front yard variance, and the possibility that the side yards might be...
No, the side yards are fine.
You'll have to confirm that, they're pretty close.
Yeah. They're close, they're close.
They're real close.
They're real close, but they are, a couple inches away.
You also have the parking in the Broadway buffer.
Yeah.
Let me say this, going back to my planning school days, usually a variance was requested because there was some hardship. It would be either economic, physical, environmental. Now, this is a lot that was just subdivided within the last 2 years, I believe, from the Milanos. So I'm trying to...
Re-subdivided.
I'm trying to figure out why are you coming in with a house that is over all these requirements? If this is a brand-new house on a brand-new lot, going into this property, you knew what the requirements were on the zoning ordinance. Why are you coming in with a house that's higher than the other houses, higher than what's permitted, coverage that's greater than permitted, and in the Broadway buffer? I don't understand that.
If the back of the house, the flat wall from the back, facing north or south, or even facing the back, I mean, what does it look like, 30 feet high? I mean, it's a straight wall. It's big.
We sort of took cues from the adjacent houses, which may have been not what we should have done, but we were sort of looking at what the adjacent houses had or where they were positioned and things, so...
The picture of the color, in color.
Okay. So, anyway, we were, the two adjacent houses are well in front of ours and taller, if not the same exact height. Which doesn't mean that I understand what your comments are, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the site plan review process. I want to get into the variance review process here, because I don't think this board, I personally, as a chairman, do not like entertaining variances on brand-new lots, on brand-new buildings.
I agree.
Unless there is some economic, physical, environmental hardship with this site, and I don't see it.
Right.
Well, the slope is a challenge, but that's...
It's not even 15% slope. I mean, you're not even talking about, something that would go into resource protection and look at what the slope is. I mean, it's a gradual
I mean,
slope.
it's really between the slope and the Broadway buffer and all the variables that are coming together, and obviously the wish and desire of the client's design to have some of these features, which doesn't mean that it's okay, but I think we tried to mitigate it by, setting the house down, working with the slope, and sort of doing some of the things. So, obviously, what we came here with is what we'd like to do. Obviously, that's, we have to discuss it and work through it. There's a reason why, design-wise, we came to these conclusions. Obviously, we want to come to the front of the house. We want to keep the cars in the front of the house. We think that's a good idea. Realistically, you need space to turn around if you're going to do that. There's no way to do that without having a space to turn around in. So that's automatically going to put you in the Broadway buffer.
Well, if you size the house, though, to what's permitted within the ordinance, maybe then you could fit the driveway outside of the Broadway buffer. I think those are things you got to look at. Again, you've got to come back with a plan, as far as I'm concerned, that meets the zoning requirements. I don't want to entertain variances on a brand-new house in the village where there is no economic, physical, environmental hardship on the site.
You're not alone trying to do this, and you're also not alone hearing what you're hearing now. So this is a well-worn path, and others have come back and responded in kind.
Sure.
And that's what I think you're going to hear from this board.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No, I totally agree. It's a new construction, and it should be within the parameters of the zoning code.
Okay, all right. I mean, some of the things are obviously close, and some of the things are difficult. Like the lot coverage is a difficult thing because it's not close.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
It's like the Broadway buffer, we're a couple feet away. I think we could work that out. The height was a sort of a misunderstanding about how that was calculated, where I had done that. But that's also really only a couple of feet, so I don't think those two things are deal breakers in any way. I think the lot coverage is our primary, would be our primary issue, is really it. I think the rest of the issues are totally addressable.
Okay. And I think those should be addressed. And I also think that just getting to one issue of that black walnut, is that what the tree is?
Yeah.
I think you're too close. You're in the drip line of work. And even just putting in a driveway underneath the drip line of that tree is going to have an impact on it. I'm sure our landscape architect is going to comment, or she probably already has commented on that too. But that's something you're going to have to look at. You may want to, when you get down to a size house that is appropriate on that site, and if it still is getting within the drip line of that tree, then I would suggest you get yourself an arborist to come in and to take a look at that issue and see what has to be done to protect that tree.
Sure.
Because I think we want to keep that tree.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you just have to obviously not put a foundation straight through it. You have to put the foundation around it, and there's some techniques for doing that. So
You have to be careful because the feeder roots of the tree are very close to the surface, and even if you're just putting a driveway in, you could be cutting those feeder roots and be doing damage to the tree, even with the minor excavation that you'd be doing. So again, that's why an arborist needs to
we
take a look at it.
want to keep that as well.
Right.
So
You may need to do some pruning on the top and then fertilizing it to be able to keep it sized properly to what you're doing to the root system. But again, that's for the future. I think the first things you have to meet are the variances that you're requesting to get underneath those requirements.
Okay.
We'd also recommend that you look in terms of scale too. I think one of the other concerns about this board is like, how does this fit in with others? There have been a couple of other new houses that have been proposed here that are similar to the kind that you're proposing, and that had to be really kind of worked through for especially the neighbors, just so they comprehend what's coming.
Okay.
So it's important to know in scale and how it fits in context.
Yeah, what you might do is not a section, but I guess it's not a section, but a profile, I guess, or just showing the proposed house in relation size-wise to the houses on either side of it.
In elevation.
In elevation.
Did we get into the character of the houses? Like, this is all flat walls and big white expanses.
We have an architect and engineer here, but there also is the ARBs.
that's the RV.
It's got wood screen and natural finishes and some a variety of textures.
Under 224-134, you're entitled to look at mass and bulk.
And fitting into the neighborhood.
It's a couple boxes. It's
Yeah.
not just one box. It's
Yeah,
a collection of boxes.
There have been projects like this before on this board, and all we're trying to do is to kind of assess what you're proposing, especially in relationship to the other houses.
Mm-hmm.
And in essence, there are certain things that we have sort of control with, others we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So it is about, it doesn't have to be the style of the house next door, but it's how it fits. And the buffer is something that Lino knows something about too.
Yeah.
So you might want to consult with him about that.
Okay.
I think from my days on the ARB, thought there was something in the ordinance that said houses should not be too similar nor too dissimilar to each other.
I'm involved in that up the road.
Here's the Steel Munz's, the landscape architect's memo. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the board members?
I think we've said it all.
No? I mean, is there any comments from anyone in the audience?
I'll speak into the mic. I'll maybe call you and ask you what you said.
My name is Bernie Milano. My wife and I live at 3 Bracebridge Lane, just to the north. We went through the building process. We were going to build a house, and then the Solomontis wanted to design their own house, and we sold them the property. We do understand the maximum size house they can build is approximately 3,500 square feet, so that was approved by this board and the other boards. And we just want to go on record that we're in support, and anything we can do to help this project go along, we're here.
Sir? Thank you. Anyone else? No? Then I think you've heard the comments from the board, so if you want to address those and come back in January with a revised plan, we'll take a look at it then. Caesar, do you have another comment? I just want to ask you a question. Sure.
I called because I didn't want to open it.
So- But I think that's it then.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Any other business plans? No? Thank you, too.
Everybody's good?
Then I think a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Let's vote.